thinking is my topic today, and I know I've spoken often here on the Hypnosis Geek YouTube channel about critical thinking and scientific and critical thinking approaches are really important to what I do and teach, and they're really at the heart of the ethos of this channel. And I've wanted to record a video for a long time about how we can actually use scientific thinking as hypnotherapists on a daily basis to enhance what we do with our clients, how we learn to advance what we do in general and be more effective as hypnotherapists. Scientific thinking, it's not just the exclusive domain of academia, research or education. It's something of huge benefit to all of us, in particular as practitioners. Christopher Hitchens, a real hero of mine, once said, "The essence of the independent mind lies not in what it thinks, but in how it thinks." And I think that frames this video really well. Hypnotherapists, of course, encounter numerous challenges in day-to-day life, which affect our work with clients, as well as our hopes and dreams for ourselves in our own lives, our families and other aspects of our lives. And our lives, our work, it's full of decisions from the small and mundane, such as what to wear or eat, to those, big life-changing ones, such as whether to get married and to who, and, how to develop our career path and how to raise our children. And those decisions that we make for our clients and the direction that our therapy is going in with our clients. And life presents us, our work presents us with tough questions and choices, and the way we think and the way we respond influences our life and our work greatly. We rely on science for so much of our lives, the findings that scientific thinking has led to, yet few people seem to know how to actually think scientifically or apply such a mindset as a means of advancing their everyday experience of life, especially working as a hypnotherapist. So what am I talking about here? What is scientific thinking? And it's not necessarily about being correct or having concrete, irrefutable, immovable evidence. Instead, we apply what current scientific understanding we have to determine and to predict and to reproduce the behavior of many things. We'll always yield when updated scientific understanding comes along. Scientific thinking skills can be very important for getting along in life and incredibly useful with our work as far as working as a hypnotherapist is considered. The scientific method itself, offers us a structure. It provides us with the steps that any scientist can take to solve problems, to research or discover new things. Those of you that are tuning in that have trained with me before, you'll have learned to use problem-solving therapy and approaches. And similar. So the rest of you most likely already use the scientific method in one way or another. Just like any skill, also, it's something that can be greatly improved upon through conscientious practice and application. Research by Holmes, Wieman and Bond back in 2015 showed that critical thinking comes with major benefits for all areas of reasoning. Exercises in critical thinking are not only helpful for your career as a hypnotherapist, in the way in which you make decisions for your clients and the way in which you reflect upon what you do, but they also promote better relationships and enable you to work through conflict in a faster, more self-aware way. And these are really useful skills for a therapist. And so I thought today that I'd share a number of principles of how to think like a scientist more in your everyday life and throughout your work as a hypnotherapist. And firstly, you want to identify meaningful questions and state them in a way that is conceivably possible to answer them. That is, it's important to recognize that there are two kind of distinct types of questions that I'm pointing out here. The questions that take a piece of knowledge as an answer, and those that can only take an opinion as an answer. So, for instance, questions like how does flu attack the human immune system? Or what's the distance between the Earth and the Sun? This is the first type of question. Whereas questions like, why is there suffering in the world? Or why are we here? Is God real? These can only really be answered with opinions, typically. So meaningful questions in science are typically those of this first type, and being scientifically minded means you don't kind of perplex your opinions with knowledge of some truth. So second of all, you ask yourself if a claim is falsifiable. Because if something's not falsifiable, it cannot be thought of in scientific terms. Falsifiability is this capacity for some proposition or some statement or some theory or hypotheses to be proven wrong. That capacity is essential in the scientific method and with scientific thinking. Thus, the inherent incapability of disproving a particular claim does not render it true. For instance, you can't disprove that a giant white gorilla lives in the Himalayan mountains, but it always avoids humans and covers up any kind of trace that it leaves behind. But there's no reason to have any grain of confidence about this claim's validity. Not necessarily. I'll put a link underneath this video to an article I wrote a while back about Bertrand Russell's teapot theory. And for those of you that are more interested, that are interested in exploring that notion a bit more. So my third point is that you accept a hypothesis only on the basis of adequate evidence, and only if there are sufficient grounds to rule out rival hypotheses. So accept not as the ultimate truth, but it's the best approximation of truth. That's what we're looking for here. Evidence, not through personal experiences or hearsay stories, but information gained through methodologically sound experimentation and statistics. And use Occam's razor for the ruling out process. Occam's razor, it's a principle drawn from philosophy, whereby, let's say that there are two possible explanations for an occurrence. This Occam's razor suggests that the one requiring the least speculation is usually correct. Or another way of saying it is that the more assumptions you have to make, the more unlikely an explanation. My next point is that you cultivate the virtue of intellectual humility. Henry Ford once said, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason so few engage in it. So, be aware of the fact that the device you use to derive conclusions and generate explanations, your brain, is often a poor data gathering machine. It's full of cognitive biases, heuristics, and it's prone to psychological distortions. Learn about your mind's innate limitations. Continuously remind yourself of their existence and try to recognize and reverse, to whatever degree is possible, their effect upon your reasoning progress and process. And to delve into this further, I've written articles on a number of common cognitive biases. I'll put a link to that below as well. You see, so many hypnotherapists seem to make decisions and have their knowledge based upon things that they've accepted as truth due to the opinion of a charismatic leader, or because they paid money to go on a particular course, or because they simply do not know differently than the singular perspective that they have, and they defend that as a result, and that's a big bias. My next point is that you be ready to revise or abandon previously held beliefs on the light of new evidence. The more you resist this notion, the further away you drift from the realm of scientific thinking, and the more you approach the confines of dogma, dogmatic belief. But then my next point is on the flip side of that, and that is, don't be too ready to abandon previously held beliefs in the light of new evidence. Believe what you like, but don't believe everything you read without questioning it. Don't let your excitement or appetite for something new blur your rationality. Think critically about novel claims. Sift through skeptical filters. Remember, extraordinary claims that people make require extraordinary evidence. Apply this same mode of thought while you're scrolling through your news feeds, and when people in this professional hypnotherapy field make claims that are fantastical or seem it. And be statistically minded. That is, a single study or a single case, does not suffice to explain or prove the existence of a phenomena. One-off case studies or anecdotes are interesting and can be useful, especially in the cases of rare diseases, for example. But they may not offer much more than that initial interest going forward. An effect has to be reproducible before it can be considered reliable evidence. Also, even if an effect is well replicated, this doesn't make it automatically generalizable to a category other than the one used to produce the evidence. Aristotle once said, "It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." And that's, that's a lovely thing. And with that in mind, my next point is that you expose your mind to all kinds of information, and in particular to opposing perspectives around each subject. It's sort of a mental attitude about critical thinking and curiosity. It's a mindset of looking at the world in a playful and curious and creative way. Your thought, your thinking process requires food and nourishment. Your reasoning process requires knowledge, ideas, and novel modes of thinking. A great faculty of scientific thinking is creativity, which requires a cross-pollination of ideas from a wealth of different disciplines and positions. The peer review process that I've encountered when submitting my academic papers to quality scientific and psychological journal publications has been something that I've spoken about before, because whilst it can be challenging to have your work scrutinized by leading academic peers and researchers, it's also incredibly fertile for your work, and it's illuminating, and it enriches what one does by drawing upon all this wide range of other evidence and studies and stances and areas of thought. And that leads us on to my next point, where you develop a curious mindset. Developing scientific attitude or a way of thinking can be a difficult thing to start. And one of the first things needed to be developed is the ability to get confused. And to keep the confusion for a while. And to keep thinking about the confusing thing for an even longer while, and whether that is an hour or 1 week or 1 year or many years, one classic human trait is that we seek to know things. We want answers and to understand something, and we struggle with a sense of not knowing. Yet it's an incredibly valuable place to be. And I tend to get particularly curious about those things that people seem absolutely certain about, especially here in the hypnotherapy field. I think anybody that seems really certain about something, probably, you want to get curious and ask some questions. Physicists at Stanford, at British Columbia, have found that encouraging students repeatedly to make different decisions about data collected improves their critical thinking. And it's the most bewildering kind of attitude that's needed to be developed, because generally most people really struggle to maintain a feeling of confusion for a second or two, and they take this comfortable stance on anything as soon as possible, a sense of I just know. And most people get horrified even if they sense that confusion is about to enter their mind and shake the equilibrium of their mind. So they take any comfortable stance before confusion enters. And that's not how the scientific attitude can be developed, and it leads to lazy thinking. And there's so much of that in the hypnotherapy field, where people don't want to be confused. They want to kind of just decide upon something and just know it. And so my final point, never stop trying new things. Perhaps develop the attitude of thinking about the unknown. Things which don't have evidence, go explore them. But, stuff that may be possible, explore possibilities, to explore things we don't know in order to develop. We need to experiment and explore. So for now, I'm hoping that, here's a few things here in this video to help you engage and develop a scientific attitude or a way of thinking in your everyday life as a hypnotherapist. And it's not only, it's not the only way of thinking, of course not. But it's certainly a very valuable and useful way of thinking that when applied, I think advances the results that your clients will get in therapy with you. And it will also enrich the way you feel about the work and the way in which you conduct yourself. That's all for today. Do subscribe to this channel. Do go visit my college website to see the courses that I run for hypnotherapists, both online and in my classrooms as well. And you'll be able to find out about my extensive online members area there. It's a geek paradise, I assure you. Best wishes. Goodbye for now.